August 2nd marks the day U.S. withdrawal from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty takes effect. The treaty required the U.S. and Soviet Union to eliminate an entire class of missiles, both conventional and nuclear, and ushered in an era of U.S., Russian, Soviet cooperation and nuclear arms control. So what led to the treaty's demise, and what does it say about the current state of U.S., Russian nuclear arms control?
The immediate cause of the treaty's demise is the Russian deployment of a cruise missile system that violates the range limits that were established in the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. As a result, the United States is decided last November and then formally in February of this year to withdraw from the treaty. The justification given makes sense that Russia is in violation of the central provision of the treaty, but justifiable is not the same thing as smart. Neither the United States nor the Russian Federation made any serious effort to try to preserve the treaty using the principle of on-site inspection that is central, and that was the key innovation of the INF Treaty. Both governments are content to let this treaty die and to cast the blame on the other. That's unfortunate because these new Russian missiles are not aimed at the United States. They are aimed at the territory of our NATO allies in Europe and represent a new offensive threat to their territory. Although the military advantage that Russia might gain from these deployments may be small, it's still important to prevent an escalation, to prevent a repeat of what we saw in the early 1980s when the US and the Soviet Union deployed massive numbers of missiles into Europe. We could get into that situation again, but I'm looking and hoping that the Europeans, the party most directly affected, will come forward with proposals that will limit the risk of this new Euro missile arms race. And I'm looking also to the US Congress to do its job and to avoid providing any encouragement for the initiation of such an arms race.
So with the INF Treaty basically dead, New START is the only remaining agreement limiting US and Russian nuclear arsenals. What is the status of New START? Why is it important, and why is it important to be talking about today?
New START took effect in 2011, and both the United States and the Russian Federation have adhered to all of its requirements. In early 2018, they both reached the limit of deployed nuclear weapons set in the treaty, and both see correctly the New START treaty as important to their national security, as limiting the threat that the other side poses, and also providing information through a series of inspection, verification, notifications that allow each side to have confidence it knows what the other side's capability is. In that sense, it is equally important to the national security of both the United States and Russia. What concerns me today is that the Trump administration is talking about it as if Russia needs this treaty more than the United States does. And that leads to the false notion that this can be used as leverage in a negotiation to get something else that we want from Russia. That's a futile search for leverage, and it's dangerous to think that we don't need this treaty anymore. If it is not extended by the two sides for another period of 5 years as provided for in the treaty, it will expire in February 2021. And then for the first time in 50 years, we will have no limit whatsoever on the nuclear arsenal of either of the two big superpowers.
So, going back to the question of kind of why talk about it now if it's going to expire in February 2021?
The Trump administration, and particularly the architect of Arms Control at the National Security Council, John Bolton, who is a serial assassin of international arms control agreements, has set up an impossible test, which is to say the president wants to go big and to have a comprehensive agreement on all types of weapons that include not only Russia, but China as well. It's a lovely sentiment, and I would praise it if it were sincere. But there's no question that Mr. Bolton intends to use it as a poison pill, to run out the clock on discussion of New START, and then to say, we tried for something bigger, but we're unable to attain it. That's why we need to talk about it now, and why Congress and the public need to make their voices heard, that this is an agreement that reduces the risk of nuclear war, prevents a new, expensive, and dangerous arms race, and makes our country safer.
What is the way forward on nuclear arms control?
The first step should be to renew the New START agreement now. There is no other step that this president could take that would simultaneously be good for American national security, offer the prospect of resolving other very difficult problems we have with Russia, and be welcomed by a bipartisan majority in the United States. It should be a no-brainer. That's step one. Step two is for the United States to get together with NATO allies and work on a concerted diplomatic and military strategy to counter the Russian violation of the INF Treaty, and to look first for a way to do that without engaging in a new Euro missile arms race. Step three ought to be that the United States and Russia get serious about an intensive strategic stability dialogue, one that does not seek to solve every problem simultaneously, but that does put on the table all the concerns that we have about each other, and then to tackle those problems one by one, linking them if necessary, but not linking them in a way that makes any progress impossible. And finally, not quite as immediately, the United States has to build a useful strategic stability dialogue with China on both the political and military levels. China has only 1/5 as many nuclear weapons deployed as the US or Russia. It does not offer the same threat to the United States homeland that Russia does, but we ought to be working hard on a dialogue that allows us to understand each other better and that creates mechanisms to prevent an incident from becoming a crisis, from becoming a conflict, from becoming a nuclear conflict. That's the essential task of our military in the nuclear age.
All right, well, thank you very much for speaking with us today on the U.S.-Russian arms control and broader nuclear arms control efforts. Thanks.
Thank you. I hope this gets wide viewership and that people care enough about it to demand that the Congress insert itself into these discussions.